I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 10 years. We met in college, had a pretty good life, 2 kids, a decent house, and I thought we were solid. At least I did. It all started to feel weird a few months ago, little cracks I didn't want to see. Lisa became more distant, secretive about her phone, snapping at me over the tiniest things. I figured she was just stressed, maybe over work or the kids, but deep down I knew something was off. I remember one night I was coming home late from work, and I noticed her phone was on the coffee table face down. Nothing unusual in itself, except that her phone was almost always face down now, and she'd get defensive if I even looked in her direction. Little things like that, but I kept telling myself I was paranoid. I trusted her. Besides, we'd been through rough patches before, and this was just another one to get past. Then came the trip to that substance abuse support group she'd been attending. She said it was for her own mental health, that she was trying to get better after her last blow-up. I was proud of her for taking steps, honestly. But I also noticed she was more secretive about her meetings, never wanted me to come, always left the house early and came back looking different. She'd be more tired, her stories about her day would change, and she'd snap at me for asking questions. I should have seen the signs, but I didn't want to believe she was cheating. I kept telling myself, no, Lisa's better than that. Then last week I decided to do a little digging. I wasn't snooping, well maybe I was, but I had my suspicions. I checked the security footage at the recovery center she visited, just to see if she was really going to her meetings like she claimed. I never thought I'd find what I found. When I saw the footage, I couldn't believe my eyes. There she was, sneaking into a side room with her support group leader, this guy named Ethan. A guy who's supposed to be helping her with her sobriety, not screwing her behind my back. I felt like I was hit by a truck. My stomach churned, my fists clenched. How could she do this to me, to us? To the trust we built over all those years. That's when I knew. My wife wasn't just lying about her meetings. She was actively cheating on me with someone she was supposed to be trusting to help her stay sober. I watched her kiss him, heard their quiet whispers, and saw the way she looked at him, like he was her world, not me. That moment was like a punch to the gut. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything in my head. The lies, the late nights, the phone calls I never knew about. It was like my entire life was a lie and I was just waking up to it. I didn't know what to do at first. Part of me wanted to storm into that place and confront her right then. Part of me wanted to believe it was some big mistake, a misunderstanding, or even a setup. But deep down, I knew the truth was staring me in the face. She'd betrayed me completely. I had no choice but to face it, but I also knew this was just the beginning of something much worse. I was hurt, angry, and confused, and I didn't even know where to start untangling this mess. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind kept circling back to that footage, her kissing Ethan, the sneaking around, the lies. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't eat, and I kept checking my phone for any missed messages or signs of her lying again. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew how she'd react. Lisa's always been good at twisting things, keeping her own little story going, making everyone think she's perfect when behind closed doors, she's just a different person. When she woke up, I could see she was trying to act normal. That fake, bitchy smile she puts on when she's hiding something. That was the first thing I noticed. She greeted me with that snide smile, like she knew I was onto her, but she wasn't going to admit anything. I told her I needed to talk, that it was important. She rolled her eyes, said she didn't have time, and started getting ready for work. Typical Lisa, bitchy, dismissive, like she didn't think I was worth her attention when I had the nerve to bring up her lies. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I waited until she was out the door, then I logged into her phone. I needed to see what she was hiding, texts, emails, anything. That's when I found it, dozens of messages between her and Ethan, mostly during the time she said she was at her meetings. Flirty, inappropriate, some downright explicit. She was sending him pictures, words I don't even want to repeat. I felt my stomach turn again. How could she be so fucking indifferent to me, to her marriage? It was like I didn't even exist anymore. I was furious. Not just with her, but with myself for not seeing it sooner. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like a fool for trusting her so blindly. I kept thinking about the years we'd spent together, all the moments I thought were real, all the plans we made. And she was out there, fucking around with someone who's supposed to be helping her, not destroying her. I couldn't believe I was so blind. I wanted to break something, to scream at her, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. It was just the beginning of what I knew I had to do. I kept looking at those messages, trying to find the words that would finally make it real to her, that I knew. Then I saw one that was the worst. Her telling him how much she needed him, how she loved the way he made her feel, so much more than I ever did. That was when I snapped. I didn't want to just confront her. I wanted her to see what she'd done, how she'd destroyed us. I decided I'd have to go to the recovery center, confront Ethan, and get the truth out there. I had to see her reaction face to face, see if she'd even try to deny it. I knew she would, of course. She's always been a master liar. But I also needed her to see I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, not just for me, but for everyone she's hurt, including herself. That afternoon, I drove to the facility, my hands trembling. I wanted to catch her in the act, to see her caught red-handed. When I arrived, I asked to see Ethan, pretending I was just checking in. When I found him, I saw the look in his eyes, guilty, nervous, but also a sort of smugness, like he thought he was untouchable. I told him I knew what was going on, that I had proof. His face went pale for a second, then he tried to lie, to deny everything. But I had the messages, the images. There was no denying it. I confronted Lisa that night, finally. When she came home, I was waiting in the living room with my phone out. I played the messages for her, showing her I knew everything. Her face twisted, anger, panic, and then that fake, bitchy smirk again. She told me it was just sex, that Ethan meant nothing, that she was just weak. She said I didn't understand her, that she was hurting, that she needed someone to take her mind off her problems. She spun her lies fast, like she was trying to escape the truth, but I saw through her. I was hurt, but I was also furious. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? That night I felt a mix of heartbreak and rage. I'd always wanted to believe in us, in the vows we made, but now I saw she never really cared about that. She only cared about herself. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was knowing I'd been so blind for so long. I thought I knew her, thought she was my best friend, my partner. But she was just playing me, lying to my face. I didn't know what the future held then, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I'd find a way to make her pay somehow. I just needed to figure out what that was. After that confrontation, everything changed. The house felt colder, quieter, like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every moment was filled with this gnawing emptiness and anger that refused to fade. I kept replaying her lies, her sneers, the way she looked at Ethan like he was her salvation from everything. Her addiction, her boredom, her miserable life. She told me she didn't want to hurt me, that she was just broken, desperate for something to fill the void. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I saw her for what she was. A selfish, manipulative bitch who'd thrown everything away just for a quick fuck. I knew I had to do something. Not just for me, but for the sake of my dignity. I had to figure out how to make her regret this, but I also wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me and everyone else. My mind kept racing, trying to come up with a plan that would hit her where it hurt without making things worse for myself. I couldn't just leave her, not without making sure she knew that her betrayal was unforgivable. I was hurt, yes, but I also felt a burning need for some kind of justice, even if it was just emotional. That's when I remembered a little detail about Ethan, something I'd overlooked at first. Ethan wasn't just some random support group leader. Turns out, he was one of those guys who liked to keep his affairs secret, a master manipulator himself. I started digging into his background. It didn't take long to find out he'd been involved in similar affairs before. He was one of those guys who thought he could get away with anything because he played the helping others card. That made me angrier. Not only had Lisa betrayed me, but she'd done it with a guy who had no morals at all. I decided I'd have to expose Ethan and Lisa together. I wanted everyone to know what kind of people they really were. I reached out to a few of my contacts, people who knew the ins and outs of the support group scene. I wanted evidence, something concrete to blow the lid on this. I wasn't planning an emotional mess. No, I wanted to hit them where it mattered. I wanted to destroy their reputations, show everyone that they weren't the helping kind of people at all. They were just selfish, manipulative cheats. While I was gathering intel, Lisa kept up her act. She tried to gaslight me, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I didn't understand her struggles. She called me controlling, insecure. That fake, bitchy smile was forever plastered on her face, like she thought she could just lie her way out of everything. But I was done with her lies. Every time she opened her mouth, I just saw more of the woman I thought I knew dying behind her eyes. She was just a shell clinging to her lies. One day I installed a hidden camera at her favorite spot where she met Ethan, just to catch her in the act again. I didn't want to be reckless, but I knew I had to be certain before I made any move. That night I sat in the dark waiting for her. When she arrived, licking her lips, I froze the footage the next morning. Watching her kiss Ethan again, whisper sweet nothings, show her vulnerability, all of it made my stomach turn. She was so confident, so cold when she lied to my face, but in that footage she seemed almost desperate, craving that validation. I kept thinking about how much she hurt me, how many years I'd wasted believing she was my partner, my best friend. But now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd let her addiction and her need for validation drive her to cheat and lie. I knew then I couldn't stay married to her, not anymore. I'd been betrayed on a level I couldn't recover from easily. The feeling of betrayal was so raw, so intense, I thought I'd never get past it. What I did next surprised even me. I gathered all the evidence, made copies of everything, screenshots of her messages, photos, video footage, and I kept them safe. I knew I had to confront her one last time, but this wasn't about yelling or shouting. It was about making her see she'd lost everything. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences. That night, I sat her down and showed her everything. Her face went pale, then red with fury. She called me crazy, said I was stalking her, that I was insecure, but I didn't care. I just wanted her to face what she'd done. The fallout was brutal. She tried to deny it again, but I had the proof. She yelled, called me a jealous, possessive asshole. I could see the anger in her eyes, the desperation to cling to her lies, but I was already done. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wanted nothing more to do with her. I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I just wanted out. I knew this was going to be a long, painful road, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I was finally freeing myself from her toxic grip. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I've learned that sometimes the only way to heal is to face the truth head-on, no matter how ugly it is. And I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar knows they're not alone. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's damn hard to repair. But you can rebuild, if you're willing to face the pain and move forward. After I made the decision to divorce Lisa, everything moved quickly, at least in my mind. I knew I couldn't stay under the same roof with her, not after what I'd discovered. The worst part was how she kept trying to spin it, throwing out excuses, crying crocodile tears, and acting like the victim. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I didn't understand her struggles. I was numb to her words. I saw right through her manipulation now. That fake, bitchy smirk she'd wear when trying to dismiss me, I knew it was just a mask, a way for her to pretend she was innocent. I reached out to a lawyer that same day, spent hours going over every detail, making sure I had all my ducks in a row. I wanted this to be clean, swift, and as painless as possible, at least on my end. I also started the process of gathering everything I could, financial records, evidence of her infidelity, and any other dirt I could find. I wasn't planning to go easy on her, but I also wanted to make sure I protected myself. The last thing I needed was her spinning some sob story to turn everyone against me. In the meantime, Lisa kept trying to convince me she was remorseful, that she'd do anything to fix this. But I knew better. I saw through her tears and her fake apologies. I knew she was just trying to keep her grip on what little control she had left. She'd always been good at twisting things, making herself the victim, and I wasn't falling for that again. I told her I needed space, told her I was going to stay at my brother's house for a while. I couldn't stand being around her anymore, not after I'd seen what she was capable of. My friends and family were a mixed bag. Some told me to forgive her, too. Try working things out. Others just shook their heads and said I deserved better. Honestly, I didn't care what anyone else thought. I knew I'd never trust her again, at least not the way I used to. The betrayal was too deep. I still felt that gnawing emptiness, but I also felt a strange sense of relief that I finally saw the truth. No more hiding from it, no more pretending that everything was fine. As the days went by, I started to feel the weight lift slightly, but the pain was still there, nagging, persistent. I'd catch myself thinking about her, then remind myself she'd chosen her lies over me, that she'd thrown away a decade of marriage like it was nothing. I wondered if she even cared or if she was just pissed off that I had caught her. That question haunted me most. Does she regret it, or does she just regret getting caught? I decided to start focusing on myself. I threw myself into work, trying to keep my mind busy. I also signed up for a few therapy sessions. Not because I thought I needed therapy, but because I knew bottling everything up was a bad idea. Talking helped, at least a little. I had to process this mess somehow. I'd never been this broken before, not even after losing a loved one or facing tough times. This was something else entirely, an emotional earthquake that left me reeling. In the midst of all this chaos, I started thinking about the future. I didn't want to live in constant pain and anger forever, but I also didn't know if I could forgive her, if I even wanted to. Part of me hoped she'd get what she deserved, that she'd realize her mistake and suffer for it, but another part of me just wanted to move on and forget her. That's a bitter pill to swallow, realizing that the person you trusted most turned out to be your biggest betrayal. It's like losing a part of yourself. One thing I learned through all this is how fragile trust really is. I used to think marriage was about loyalty, about building a life together. Turns out, it can be just as easy to destroy it with lies and selfishness. And I've also learned that you have to protect yourself. Don't ignore the signs. Don't make excuses for people who show their true colors. It's better to face the pain early than to live with the betrayal lingering in the background, poisoning everything. I don't have a perfect ending yet. I'm still healing, still trying to piece myself back together after all the damage. But I do know one thing: I'm not going to let her define my future. I'll rebuild, stronger, smarter, and more cautious. And if anyone out there is dealing with a similar betrayal, I want you to know, it fucking hurts, but you can survive it. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to realize your worth. And trust me, life keeps moving. You just have to keep moving with it, even if it's one small step at a time. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings, packing, and trying to find some semblance of normalcy. The divorce process was a nightmare. Papers here, negotiations there, and the constant echo of her lies in my head. I couldn't help but feel bitter every time I thought about her, how she'd thrown away everything we built. The worst part was knowing she'd been lying to me for so long, manipulating my trust for her own selfish needs. It made me question every moment of our marriage, the good, the bad, and the really fucking ugly. I moved out of the house finally, into a small apartment a few miles away. Honestly, it felt like a relief just to get out of that toxic environment. Being in that house was like living in a constant reminder of her betrayal. I'd see her stuff, her clothes, her makeup, all the little reminders of the woman who had torn my life apart. I knew I needed space, not just physically but emotionally. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not after what I'd uncovered. Most days, I'd wake up angry, then gradually shift into a kind of numb acceptance. Part of me hated her so much I wanted her to suffer, but I also knew that revenge wasn't going to fix the broken trust or undo what she'd done. I just wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, what it was like to lose someone who genuinely cared. I started planning how I'd do that, in small ways, making sure she knew I wasn't just going to disappear quietly. One thing I did was cut all contact with Ethan. I made a point to expose him at the support group, warning everyone about his manipulative ways. I sent the evidence to the organization and even called their supervisor. I wanted him to lose whatever credibility he'd built up, to feel the same humiliation I'd felt when I saw those recordings. I didn't want him to get away with it. I wanted to make sure that if he tried pulling the same crap with someone else, he'd think twice. For Lisa, I kept my distance. She tried reaching out a few times, crying and begging me to come back, saying she was sorry, that she loved me. I'd listen for a few seconds just to hear her out, then shut her down. I wasn't interested in her apologies anymore. No words could undo what she'd done, no tears or pleading. I'd learned that the only thing she cared about was herself, and I was done being her punching bag or her fallback. I deserved better than that. I knew that much. I started focusing on my own well-being again. Started working out, going for long walks, reconnecting with old friends I'd drifted away from. I realized I'd let her drain all my energy for too long. Her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. I owed it to myself to rebuild, to rediscover who I was before she tore me down. It wasn't easy, and there were days I felt like giving up, but I reminded myself that I was stronger than her lies, stronger than the pain. The biggest lesson I learned, beyond the betrayal and heartbreak, was that sometimes you have to accept that people can surprise you in the worst ways. I never thought Lisa could do something so cold, so calculated. I thought we were solid. That trust was everything, but she proved me wrong. And it's a hard lesson, but one I think everyone should learn. Trust is fragile, and sometimes it's better to see the truth early than to live in denial. Now, I don't know what's next. I don't have a clear vision of the future, but I do know I'm not going back. I'm not going to stay stuck in that hurt forever. I've realized I have the power to move on, to rebuild myself from the wreckage she left behind. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about reclaiming my life piece by piece. I will find happiness again, even if it takes time. For anyone reading this who's been betrayed, I want you to know, it hurts like hell, but you're not alone. You'll get through it. Keep your head up. Trust takes a long time to repair, if it can be repaired at all, but your worth isn't defined by someone else's lies. It's about how you pick yourself up and keep going, even when everything feels broken. Because one day you'll look back and realize the pain was just a chapter, not the end. And you'll be stronger for it. Looking back now, I can't believe I let her spin me around so long, fool myself into thinking things weren't as bad as they really were. For years, I believed in us, believed in her, in the vows we made, in the idea that we could get through anything together. But all that was just a thin veneer over a toxic reality I refused to see. The betrayal with Ethan shattered that illusion completely. It was like I'd been living in a dream, and waking up to that nightmare left me with more questions than answers. In the aftermath, I've come to understand that sometimes the best thing you can do is accept that some people are just not worth the fight. Lisa never really loved me. She loved the idea of us, what we represented. She was selfish, manipulative, and ultimately she chose her own selfish needs over everything else. That realization hit hard, but it also freed me. I stopped trying to salvage what was already broken, because some damage is beyond repair. Instead, I focused on rebuilding myself. What I've learned is that healing is messy. It's unpredictable, full of setbacks and moments when you doubt whether you'll ever get past the pain. But every day I remind myself that I'm still here. I survived her betrayal, and I can survive anything. The anger still lingers sometimes, but it's gradually being replaced by a quiet resolve. I'm not bitter anymore, I'm determined. To move forward, to be better. I've also come to see that honesty is everything. Trust, once lost, is incredibly hard to regain. But even more important is trusting yourself. That you'll get through the darkness, that your worth isn't dictated by someone else's lies. I wish I'd seen sooner how toxic she had become, how much she was willing to lie and cheat just to satisfy her own needs. I wish I'd listened to those little gut feelings. But I also realize now that it's never too late to reclaim your life. So here's what I want anyone out there to remember. Don't ignore those signs. Don't excuse the behavior, no matter how much you love someone, because love isn't supposed to hurt this much. Healing might take time, and it might be the hardest thing you ever do, but I promise it's worth it. You're worth it. I'm not perfect, and I still have bad days. But I know I've taken the first real step toward peace, one I never thought I'd find after everything I went through. And no matter how deep the betrayal, there's always a way out. Sometimes, you just have to rip off the bandage and face the truth head on. It's painful, but it's honest. And honesty is what finally set me free.